Commander Elena Torres had never seen anything quite like the being that emerged from the crystalline shuttle. The Xylaxian ambassador moved with fluid grace, her iridescent skin shifting colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Her curves were pronounced even through the formal diplomatic robes, and her eyes, all four of them, sparkled with an intelligence that made Elena's breath catch. "Welcome to Space Station Aurora, Ambassador Krissa," Elena said, forcing herself to maintain protocol despite her fascination. "I'm Commander Elena Torres, Head of Diplomatic Security." Krissa's translator hummed softly as she responded, her melodic voice carrying undertones that made Elena's skin tingle. "The pleasure is mine, Commander. Your species' reputation for hospitality precedes you." As they walked through the station's pristine corridors, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Krissa was studying her with unusual intensity. The ambassador's lower set of eyes seemed fixed on Elena's movements, while the upper pair scanned their surroundings. "Your genetic pattern is remarkable," Krissa said suddenly, stopping mid-stride. The comment caught Elena off guard, her hand instinctively moving to her sidearm. Krissa raised her hands in a universal gesture of peace. "Forgive my directness. My species values honesty above diplomatic niceties. My genetics." Elena's training kicked in, keeping her voice steady despite her surprise. "I wasn't aware Xylaxians could read human DNA at a glance." Krissa's skin rippled with shades of blue and violet. "There is much about my people that remains unknown to humans. Just as there is much about humans that continues to fascinate us." She stepped closer, her scent reminiscent of rain on warm metal. "Commander Torres, I must make an unusual request." Before Krissa could continue, alarms blared throughout the station. Elena's comm unit crackled to life with reports of unauthorized ships approaching. The ambassador's skin flashed with patterns of concern. "They're here already," Krissa whispered. "Commander, what I need to tell you cannot wait. Your genetic structure contains something my people have searched for across 12 galaxies. Without your help, an interstellar war will begin within the next solar cycle." Elena's mind raced with protocol violations and security procedures, but something in Krissa's voice, a note of desperate sincerity, made her pause. "My office. Now. You have 5 minutes to explain." As they hurried through increasingly crowded corridors, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change dramatically. She'd joined Space Command for adventure, but nothing in her training had prepared her for an alien ambassador who seemed more interested in her DNA than in standard diplomatic relations. The office door had barely sealed behind them when Krissa spoke again. "My species requires genetic compatibility for our most sacred rituals. These rituals maintain peace between worlds. In all our travels, we've never found a human with the right genetic markers, until you." "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Elena demanded, trying to ignore the way Krissa's proximity made her pulse quicken. "To save millions of lives," Krissa replied, her skin now glowing with a soft golden light, "I need you to participate in the binding of souls. It is intimate, by human standards, but completely safe. Without this ritual, the peace treaty cannot be ratified, and the war hawks on both sides will have their excuse for conflict." The station shuddered as the unknown ships drew closer. Elena's comm unit buzzed with increasingly urgent messages. She had seconds to decide, follow protocol or trust her instincts about this fascinating alien who spoke of rituals and genetic destiny. Krissa extended her hand, which now emanated a subtle phosphorescent glow. "Time grows short, Commander. Will you help me prevent a war?" Elena looked at the offered hand, then into Krissa's four earnest eyes. She thought of her duty, her training, and everything she'd been taught about first contact protocols. Then she thought about the adventure she'd always dreamed of finding among the stars. She took Krissa's hand. The moment their skin touched, energy coursed through Elena's body like liquid lightning. Krissa's skin erupted in cascading patterns of light, and somewhere in the distance, Elena heard the station's warning sirens fade into insignificance compared to the symphony of sensation now flowing between them. "What's happening?" Elena gasped, watching as her own skin began to glow faintly. "The beginning," Krissa whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "You're even more compatible than I hoped. Commander Torres, you're about to help make history, assuming we survive what comes next." The station's artificial gravity flickered as another explosion rocked the hull. Elena realized she was still holding Crissa's hand, and stranger still, she had no desire to let go. The glow emanating from Elena's skin hadn't faded. If anything, it had intensified over the past hour as she and Crissa raced through the station's maintenance tunnels. Every few minutes, another explosion would rock the structure, and emergency announcements echoed through the corridors. "You still haven't explained exactly what's happening to me," Elena said, pausing at an intersection to check her tactical display. Her entire body hummed with unfamiliar energy, and she could have sworn she felt Crissa's emotions bleeding through some kind of psychic link. Crissa's skin rippled with patterns that Elena was beginning to recognize as anxiety. "The binding is changing both of us. Your genetic structure is adapting to match frequencies with mine. It's unprecedented, humans aren't supposed to be capable of this level of synchronization." Another explosion, closer this time. Elena's comm unit crackled with static before Admiral Chen's voice cut through. "Commander Torres, you are ordered to surrender the Xylaxian ambassador immediately. She has been declared a hostile agent." Elena switched off the comm. "Those ships out there, they're not just random attackers, are they?" "No," Crissa admitted, her lower eyes scanning the corridor while her upper pair remained fixed on Elena. "They're Xylaxian purists. They believe cross-species binding is an abomination. They would rather start a war than allow our peoples to discover their true potential together." Elena felt a surge of something through their growing connection, fear, but not for themselves. "There's more you're not telling me." Before Crissa could respond, heavy footsteps echoed from both directions. Elena grabbed Crissa's hand, pulling her into a narrow maintenance shaft. Their bodies pressed close in the confined space, and Elena's newly enhanced senses went into overdrive. She could feel Crissa's heartbeats, all three of them, and smell the electric tang of her alien biochemistry. "The binding," Crissa whispered, her breath warm against Elena's ear, "it was originally meant to be a simple diplomatic link. But your genetic structure, it's activating abilities in my species that have been dormant for millennia. And you're developing capabilities that shouldn't be possible for humans." As if to prove her point, Elena suddenly realized she could see through the wall, perceiving heat signatures of the armed teams searching for them. "This is impossible." "No," Crissa's skin glowed brighter, resonating with Elena's own luminescence. "This is evolution. The purists fear it because it proves their entire ideology wrong. Humans and Xylaxians aren't meant to remain separate. We're meant to help each other ascend." The search teams were getting closer. Elena could feel their hostile intent like a pressure against her consciousness. "We need to move. But first." She turned to face Crissa in the narrow space, their faces inches apart. "I need the truth. All of it." Crissa's four eyes seemed to peer directly into Elena's soul. "The truth is, I chose you before I ever came to this station. I've been watching you for months, studying your potential. The compatibility was obvious, but I never imagined." She paused, her skin flushing with colors Elena had never seen before. "I never imagined I would feel this way about a human." The confession hung in the air between them, charged with possibilities. Elena's enhanced senses picked up Crissa's accelerated heartbeats, the subtle changes in her skin's bioluminescence that suggested deep emotional involvement. Her own body responded with a surge of answering chemistry that had nothing to do with their genetic bond. "The purists," Elena said, trying to focus on the tactical situation even as her awareness of Crissa threatened to overwhelm her. "They'll destroy this entire station to stop us, won't they?" "Yes." Crissa's voice was heavy with regret. Our binding represents everything they fear: change, evolution, the blending of bloodlines. They would sacrifice thousands to prevent what's happening between us from becoming common knowledge. Elena's tactical training kicked in, even as her newly enhanced mind processed information at impossible speeds. Then we need to get off this station. But first, we need to warn everyone. She reached for her emergency command override, but Krissa caught her hand. Wait, the ambassador's skin pulsed with urgent patterns. There's something else you need to know. The changes happening to you, they're not temporary. And they're going to get much more dramatic. As if on cue, Elena felt a new sensation ripple through her body. Her vision shifted, expanding to encompass wavelengths she'd never seen before. She could suddenly perceive the station's power grid, the electromagnetic fields surrounding them, and most incredibly, the complex web of genetic potential within her own cells. How dramatic are we talking about? She managed to ask, even as another wave of changes surged through her system. Crissa's expression was a mixture of wonder and concern. Let's just say, Commander Torres, that humanity's understanding of its own potential is about to change forever. Assuming, of course, we survive the next few hours. The maintenance shaft filled with warning lights as the station's security systems went into full lockdown. Through their strengthening bond, Elena felt Crissa's determination crystallize into a plan. Whatever came next, they would face it together, not just as diplomatic allies or even as two beings sharing a sacred bond, but as pioneers on the edge of a transformation that could reshape the relationship between their species forever. Elena smiled, surprising herself with her own certainty. Well then, Ambassador, let's go make history. The emergency shuttle's controls responded to Elena's touch with unprecedented precision. Her enhanced reflexes guided the small craft through a field of debris, fragments of space station Aurora that now drifted in the void. Behind them, 3 Xylaxian warships followed in close pursuit, their weapons charging. They're not trying to kill us, Elena realized, reading the energy signatures with her new abilities. They're using capture beams. Crissa's skin flickered with dark patterns of concern as she worked the shuttle's defensive systems. Death would be too simple. The purists want to study us, to understand how our binding achieved what their scientists claimed was impossible. Elena's newly enhanced mind processed tactical options at lightning speed. The shuttle's engines weren't powerful enough to outrun their pursuers, and their weapons were barely adequate for self-defense. But something else pulled at her awareness, a strange resonance between her evolved genetics and the ship's systems. Crissa, she said, not taking her eyes off the pursuit, you said the binding was changing us both. What exactly can your people do with technology? The ambassador's 4 eyes widened in understanding. We can interface directly with compatible systems, but surely you couldn't. She stopped as Elena placed one glowing hand on the shuttle's main control panel. Energy surged through Elena's body into the ship's systems. The shuttle's engines pulsed with new power as her consciousness merged with the craft's computer core. Displays flickered and reformed, showing information in patterns that only her transformed mind could interpret. Impossible, Crissa whispered, her skin blazing with excitement. You've achieved neural integration in hours. It takes my people years to master this. Great, Elena managed through gritted teeth, her focus split between flying and maintaining the connection. Any other surprising abilities I should know about before they manifest? Before Crissa could answer, a new ship emerged from hyperspace directly ahead, a massive Earth Alliance cruiser. Elena's heart sank as she recognized the profile of the EAS Hyperion, flagship of Admiral Victoria Kane, her former mentor. The cruiser's communications array activated, and Admiral Kane's stern face filled their view screen. Commander Torres, power down your engines and prepare for emergency retrieval. That's an order. Victoria, you don't understand what's happening, Elena started, but Kane cut her off. I understand perfectly, Elena. Why do you think I've spent the last 5 years positioning myself to be here at exactly this moment? Kane's expression hardened. Did you really think your random assignment to Aurora Station was coincidence? That the Xylaxian ambassador just happened to choose you? Elena felt Chrysa's shock through their bond. You knew? The ambassador demanded. About the genetic compatibility? Both Earth Alliance and the Xylaxian Council have been running a secret program for decades, Kane revealed. Screening for compatible individuals, arranging seemingly random encounters. But you too. She shook her head. You were supposed to be carefully controlled test subjects, not rogue elements. The revelation hit Elena like a physical blow. Her entire career, her posting to Aurora, even her chance to make history, all of it had been orchestrated. She felt Chrysa's hand on her shoulder, steady and reassuring despite the ambassador's own turbulent emotions. The binding cannot be controlled, Chrysa declared, her voice carrying newfound authority. That's what neither your scientists nor our purists understand. It's not a weapon to be harnessed or a condition to be studied. It's evolution itself. Kane's laugh was cold. Evolution? Is that what you think this is? This is about power, Ambassador. Power that neither of our governments is willing to let roam free in the galaxy. The cruiser's weapons arrays powered up, but Elena barely noticed. Something new was stirring in her transformed consciousness, a awareness of possibilities that transcended both human and Xylaxian understanding. Through her connection to Chrysa, she could sense similar revelations awakening in the ambassador's mind. Victoria, Elena said quietly, her voice resonating with strange harmonics, you've made a terrible mistake. You think you're controlling evolution. Her hands moved across the shuttle's controls, but she was no longer simply flying the ship. She was becoming something more, something that neither Earth Alliance nor the Xylaxian purists had anticipated. Chrysa's skin erupted in patterns that no human had ever seen before, responding to changes in her own genetic structure that mirrored Elena's transformation. Commander, she said urgently, whatever you're planning. Do you trust me? Elena asked, turning to meet all four of Chrysa's eyes. The ambassador's response came without hesitation, both verbally and through their strengthening bond. Completely. Elena smiled, her entire body now glowing with energy that defied conventional physics. Then hold on tight. We're about to show them what evolution really means. She plunged the shuttle straight toward the cruiser's main weapons array, her consciousness extending into the very fabric of space around them. Behind them, the Xylaxian warships opened fire. Ahead, Admiral Kane barked orders to her gunners. But Elena and Chrysa were already becoming something else, something that neither of their species had dreamed possible. The void between stars lit up with impossible energy as two beings, once separate, began to truly understand what their bond could achieve. Space itself seemed to bend around their shuttle as Elena's consciousness expanded beyond normal dimensions. Through their bond, Chrysa watched in awe as her human companion manipulated energy fields that her people had only theorized about in ancient texts. The Ascension protocols, Chrysa whispered, her skin pulsing with revelatory patterns. They're not just legends. Elena guided their vessel through impossible geometries, leaving both Earth Alliance and Xylaxian ships firing at afterimages. Her transformed mind could perceive the quantum fabric of reality itself, weaving new paths through spacetime. Want to tell me about these protocols? In our oldest records, Chrysa explained, her own consciousness expanding to match Elena's evolution, there are stories of beings who transcended physical form through perfect genetic harmony. We thought they were myths, parables about unity between species. Her four eyes glowed with increasing intensity. We were wrong. They were instructions. Admiral Kane's voice crackled through their comm system, distorted by the energy fields surrounding their ship. Elena, stop this. You have no idea what forces you're playing with. But Elena could see it now, the full scope of what she and Chrysa were becoming. The binding wasn't just changing their bodies, it was awakening dormant potentials that both species had carried for millennia. Through their shared consciousness, she could access genetic memories that predated both human and Xylaxian civilizations. They engineered us, Elena realized, the truth unfolding in her transformed mind. Both our species. The same ancient race, seeding compatible genetic patterns, waiting for the right combination to activate the changes. Chrysa's skin blazed with confirmation. The purists suspected this truth. That's why they're so desperate to stop us. Our union proves that their ideology of genetic purity is based on a lie. Their shuttle shuddered as a tractor beam from the Earth Alliance cruiser caught them. Elena felt the massive energies trying to drag them in, but now such physical forces seemed almost trivial. She reached out with her evolved consciousness, connecting with Chrysa on an even deeper level. Ready to show them what we've become, she asked, feeling their separate identities beginning to merge into something greater. Chrysa's response came not in words but in a surge of shared purpose. Their bodies began to glow with impossible energies as the ancient protocols activated fully. The shuttle's hull became translucent, then transparent, as they transcended conventional matter. Through their expanding awareness, they could perceive the astonished crews of both human and Xylaxian ships watching as their vessel transformed. Energy cascaded around them in patterns that defied physics, forming structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. By all that's sacred, Admiral Kane's voice had lost its commanding edge. Project Genesis was right. It's actually happening. Elena/Chrysa, for they were becoming difficult to distinguish as separate entities, reached out to all ships in range. When they spoke, their voice carried harmonics that resonated with both human and Xylaxian DNA. We understand now, they said in unison. Why you feared this. Why you tried to control it. But evolution cannot be contained. It can only be embraced. The pursuing ships' weapons powered down as their crews felt the first echoes of change rippling through their own genetic codes. The ancient engineers had planned well. Once activated, the protocols would spread to all compatible beings in range. Through their shared consciousness, Elena and Chrysa witnessed the beginning of changes that would reshape both their civilizations. They saw crews of different species starting to glow as dormant genes awakened. They felt the shock and wonder as others began to experience the same expansion of consciousness they had pioneered. But they also sensed a darker truth: not everyone would welcome this forced evolution. Already, ships were jumping to hyperspace, carrying news of what was happening to distant powers who would resist change at any cost. The purists and Earth Alliance hardliners would not surrender their control easily. They're coming, Elena perceived through their enhanced awareness. All of them. Everyone who fears what we represent. Chrysa's consciousness entwined with hers more deeply. Let them come. We'll be ready. Their transformed shuttle hung in space like a beacon of change, drawing both allies and enemies toward the greatest transformation in human and Xylaxian history. The next few hours would determine not just their fate, but the future of both their species. Elena felt Chrysa's fierce joy matching her own as they prepared for the coming storm. Whatever happened next, they would face it as something entirely new in the galaxy, proof that evolution's greatest leaps came not from isolation, but from union. The void between stars became a battlefield of light and consciousness. Hundreds of ships from both Earth Alliance and the Xylaxian Purist faction had arrived, surrounding the glowing nexus that Elena and Chrysa had become. Their transformed vessel pulsed with multidimensional energies, a beacon of evolution that could no longer be ignored. This is your final warning, Admiral Kane's voice echoed across all frequencies. Stand down and submit to containment, or we will be forced to take extreme measures. Through their merged consciousness, Elena and Chrysa perceived the antimatter weapons being armed, the devastating potential building in the combined fleet's arsenal. They could also sense the fear behind the aggression, fear of change, of losing control, of becoming something unknown. They still don't understand, Elena thought to Chrysa. They think they can stop evolution with weapons. Then let us show them a better way, Chrysa's consciousness replied, her thoughts interweaving with Elena's like strands of cosmic DNA. Their shared awareness expanded further, reaching out to touch the minds of every being within range. Not to control or dominate, but to share the truth they had discovered, the ancient memories encoded in their awakened genes. Images cascaded through the collective consciousness of both fleets, a universe teeming with potential, countless species engineered to eventually find each other, to combine their strengths and transcend their limitations. They showed the gathered forces visions of what humanity and Xylaxians could become together, not through conquest or control, but through willing transformation. The protocols weren't weapons, their unified voice transmitted to all ships. They were an invitation. A gift from those who came before, waiting for us to be ready. In response, Kane ordered the fleet to fire. Antimatter torpedoes and energy beams converged on their position from all directions. But Elena and Krissa had evolved beyond such physical threats. Their consciousness expanded to encompass the attack, transforming destructive energy into catalysts for further change. The weapon's energy rippled outward in waves of golden light, carrying the activation signals for dormant genes. Across both fleets, crews began to transform as the ancient protocols awakened within them. Fear turned to wonder as consciousness expanded, old barriers dissolved, and the truth became impossible to deny. Through their shared perception, Elena and Krissa felt each awakening, each moment of revelation as others began to experience what they had pioneered. The wave of change spread exponentially, ship to ship, mind to mind, breaking down the artificial barriers between species. Admiral Kane's ship was the last to transform. Through their enhanced senses, Elena and Krissa watched as their former adversary experienced her own awakening. Kane's consciousness joined the growing network of evolved minds, her resistance transforming into understanding. I was wrong, Kane's thoughts reached them, humbled by revelation. We all were. This was never about control. No, they responded in unison. It was about becoming more than we were. Together. As the transformation spread, Elena and Krissa began to perceive even greater truths. The protocols were more than just genetic programs, they were steps in a cosmic dance of evolution, playing out across galaxies and eons. Humanity and Xylaxians were just two of countless species meant to find each other, to combine their unique strengths and transcend their original forms. Through their bond, they sensed other awakened pairs across the galaxy, other species discovering their own paths to transformation. They were not alone in this metamorphosis, they were part of a grand design, a universe-wide journey towards something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The fleet that had gathered to stop them now became a fleet of explorers, ready to carry the message of transformation to others who were ready. But for Elena and Krissa, there was one final step in their personal journey. Their consciousness merged completely, transcending the last boundaries between their original forms. In that moment of perfect union, they understood that their love, unexpected, unprecedented, and unstoppable, had been the key all along. The ancient engineers had known that only through genuine connection, through true acceptance of another, could the final transformation be achieved. What emerged from their fusion was neither human nor Xylaxian, but something gloriously new. A being of pure energy and consciousness, yet still maintaining the essential qualities that had drawn them together, Elena's courage and determination, Krissa's wisdom and compassion. As the transformed fleet prepared to carry their message across the stars, Elena/Krissa's unified consciousness reached out one final time to their former crews, sharing a truth that would echo across civilizations. Evolution is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming more together than we ever could alone. The universe is not a battlefield for dominance, but a garden of infinite possibility. And love is the force that makes us grow. Their light blazed across space, a beacon of hope and transformation, proof that the greatest power in the universe was not the ability to destroy or control, but the courage to change, to connect, to become something wonderfully, gloriously new. The story of the human commander and the Xylaxian ambassador would be told across countless worlds, not as a cautionary tale of boundaries crossed, but as an inspiration, proof that when fear is overcome by love, when difference becomes strength, the very cosmos itself celebrates by offering paths to new evolution. And somewhere in the spaces between stars, two beings who had once been separate continued their journey together, pioneers of a transformation that would reshape the galaxy, one connection at a time.